Okay, great. Can you please allow me to screen share?
Yes.
Okay, great. Welcome, everybody. Great to see you all. It's been amazing looking at all the conversations that have been going on the Discord channels, and also to look at some of the proposals. It's been great. I think it was amazing effort from all of you to actually put your thoughts together, ask questions, and after that translate all of those into good proposals. And congratulations to all of you once again for being selected and for being here, and wish you all the very best on this journey ahead. To start with, we are really excited to see you all. And we've also been thinking a lot on, how do we sort of have this cohort move forward? What are some of the things that we do before we start? And that's why, we've organized this bootcamp to get you all started. What I'll do right now is I'll give you all a brief overview of what's C4GT. I think Rahul touched upon a few things as well. I want to give you a brief overview, and then I'll talk a little bit about what's also coming up ahead in the bootcamp, and then what else is there as part of the program. So as you all know, this program is called the Code for GovTech program. And hey guys, please keep asking questions on the chat where we've got different team members. They'll be happy to answer your questions as I speak. So please keep asking questions. We'll also pause towards the end for more Q&As. Okay. So as you all know, this is the Code for GovTech program. Our aim is to catalyze an ecosystem around digital public goods. This program has different elements in it. So to start with, what is the mission and vision? This is one of India's first mentoring program to create a community around digital public goods. What you'd get from this community as students and working professionals is an experiential learning opportunity. You would have seen, as all of you have witnessed over the past couple of weeks, you have industry leaders, industry folks who've been working across diverse organizations, responding very proactively to you all. The idea is also to provide that learning opportunity to everybody who's actually participating, not just people who are being selected, but to everybody in general. So what you're seeing becomes part of this community will get the opportunity to learn on an ongoing basis. Mentoring program that you're all part of is one avatar of it. For organizations, the ones who are building DPGs, or there are organizations who are adopting digital public goods into their products. For them, it's a great place to actually build a community for their products. We've seen that a lot of open source digital public goods in our country or in general have been built, designed, and also implemented within close quarters. So this is a great opportunity for them also to have a more vibrant community around their products. And like I said, the larger goal of this entire initiative is to have a long-term vibrant community of contributions to drive wider adoption and sustainability of DPGs. You all would have heard, just rewinding back a little bit, why digital public goods at this point, and why so much focus? So digital public goods, as you would have seen, has been one of the key drivers, has been called out as one of the key drivers for achieving sustainable development goals by the United Nations. So you would have seen there is a lot of focus by the United Nations on the digital public goods. There's a lot of focus in the G20 for digital public goods as well. You would have seen a lot of discussions around India's decade and how digital public infrastructure and digital public goods from India are being now adopted by different countries in the world. So there is that entire momentum that you see as part of the G20 as well. And third, if you look at our own country, there are important elements of the India stack, which, as you are seeing, the private sector is now sort of building upon. You would have seen a lot of fintech startups around things. You would have seen a lot of functions that people are doing around some of the innovation that have happened around the India stack. So it's important to also understand that a lot of this is being implemented today in India. So that is why the focus a lot on DPGs, and that is why we felt, and we've seen very clearly that there is a gap. There is a big opportunity right now to build communities around DPGs. And for you all, as you learn more about digital public goods, what you learn very importantly is you will have an opportunity to learn about how architectures are thought at this level, right? You'll also see how solutions are designed at this level. You'll also see how some of these are implemented within products. Then you will also get to see how communities around these are run. So we're hoping that through this entire experience that you all are having for the next 2 months, you all get to learn a lot, plus you're able to also translate a lot of your learning towards your communities, whether it's in your college or your other groups. So this is what the overall GovTech Code for GovTech program is all about. Now, in this Code for GovTech program, there are different elements. So just to begin with, Samagra is the organizer. Samagra is an organization that's the organizer, that's organizing the Code for GovTech. But we have knowledge partners. So Umidyar Network India is one knowledge partner. You may have all heard of Umidyar. Then there is a Digital Public Goods Alliance. Now, DPG Alliance is essentially a registry of digital public goods across the world. So you will see if you go to DPGA, it's funded by different entities, including the UNDP. And this registry is essentially a registry that says what that digital public good is, who owns it, and there is an entire process of becoming part of that registry of the digital public goods. So DPGA is a knowledge partner. In fact, they are very keen. We've only started off right now with DPGs that are built in India or are being used by India, but they're really keen to, they're already supporting us, and they have sent some of the DPGs our way, but they also want to see how we can expand this to the larger DPG ecosystem globally. So that's one of our knowledge partners. We also have a community partner. So GitHub, as you all would have been very familiar with, GitHub is a community partner here. GitHub also focuses a lot on building communities around digital public goods. So for them, this is a great opportunity for actually being part and trying to facilitate. And you'll also see that as we move forward, there may be certain sessions that we'll have somebody from GitHub in as well, so that we all as a community can grow well and have good DPG communities within GitHub. So these are the organizations that are sort of organizing and putting this together. Now, what is C4GT? So C4GT has one program that you all are part of, which is the mentoring program. This is a shorter duration program that goes on from 1st July to 30th August. And this program is where you would have seen we had 104 projects, and 103 people have been selected. One project could not select anybody because the proposal was not good enough, but 103 projects got selected. Now for this, you will have dedicated mentoring that will go on for the next 8 weeks. And finally, a code will be checked into the building block and the solution repositories that you're working for. This is the mentoring program. Now, before we go forward, I do want to call out that with the mentoring program, what we also have started, which you would have seen in the on Discord, is a community program. What is the community program? Now, if you look at the mentoring program, this is more a spike in the community, right? Where you all will get that 8 weeks of close mentoring for a problem statement that's worth 8 weeks of effort. Community program is more to actually sustain the community and to grow the community. Now, community program is what it essentially is that different organizations, including the 20 that are part of the mentoring program and even more, will now start in their own repositories creating issues as per a certain taxonomy, which slowly, as you see, will start becoming more a global standard where tickets are created with a certain taxonomy, and those will be listed in the C4GT community. In fact, Venkatesh, if you can also just share the link of the community projects that are currently live with the group, because then you can, all of you can also share this with any of your peers who gave proposals but did not get selected in the mentoring program, or anybody who you feel is interested in solving problems for DPGs. They can directly go there, explore projects, take up projects, close them. These projects can range from anywhere between something that can be low complexity, which can be done in a few hours, to high complexity, which will be done in a few days or weeks. And there is an entire incentivization model on this where you get different points, you get different badges, and you get different opportunity to showcase that with organizations. So community program is a more longer term program. There is no end date to it, but it started on 22nd June. So that's just for you all to know. But now focusing more on the mentoring program, which you all are here for. Now in the mentoring program, just to give you some perspective, we had started off in 1st April, where we were talking to organizations to identify what are the different projects. We were doing some quality checks from 1st to the 14th of May, where we were trying to ensure that the projects that are coming forward into C4GT have a certain quality. We made a public announcement to all of you on 15th May that we are going to be opening these projects. And from 15th May to 12th June, you all had discussions with the mentors and put up your proposals. 12th June to 22nd June was a period where all the organizations, all the mentors got together to review proposals and identify one person who can actually go forward in this. Where we are, and then 22nd June was the announcement, which was last week. Where we are today is the bootcamp that you're all part of, which is going to go from today till Thursday. After that, on Friday, we have an inauguration event where we have different industry leaders joining us for a few hours, where we'll be actually sort of, launching the program this year. Then you have the coding period from the 1st of July to the 30th of August, where you'll be working very closely with the organizations. In between this period, there will be a midpoint showcase. What is that showcase? Who will be showcasing? The mechanics of that we'll be sharing more with you towards the end of the first week. And then you have a final event which will happen in August. That is the final event where you check in a lot of what you worked on. So the idea is that everything that you worked on, you've checked it in, and then on 31st there is a final event to call a closure to the entire mentoring program. So this is the overall timeline for this year's mentoring program. In this mentoring program, one important thing to note is that just to give you some perspective, essentially, this program we had done a pilot last year of this program. Some of you may have already seen, the C4GT 2022 projects. But just to give you a perspective, we started last year. There were 9 projects across 8 products from 4 organizations, and there were about 7 mentors. At that point, our Discord community was about 650. That was a pilot year. We wanted to see what works, what doesn't. We also wanted to see, whether we are able to give as a community a good experience to people who join in. So that worked well. In fact, a lot of the community of organizations, of funders, of people who are running advocacy efforts, everybody wanted to essentially scale this community. So as a result, we took up this challenge and we said, okay, let's scale it from this year onward. This year, as you would have seen, we had 104 projects from 38 across 38 products from 20 organizations with 70 plus mentors. Our Discord community somewhere, I think at about 9,000, about 8,800, it sort of fluctuates up and down, but it's around that much today. So we do have a lot of people in our community. Now it's up to us to sort of, build it and take it forward from here. So this is where you are. And in this, you would have seen, as Rahul was mentioning, we've got different types of organizations who are participating. And I must tell you that this is the first time all these organizations have come together like this. Otherwise you would always see the protocol builders having their own conversations. You would always see government bodies in their own sort of domain driving products. You will see a lot of the tech consulting firms also sort of, doing work only on their projects. So it's an important platform for even organizations. You would have seen that a lot of the tickets that you all have put proposals for had a certain, like I said, taxonomy, right? So that was also a first time where a lot of these organizations were following a taxonomy for the community. Because note, if all of this was happening, there would be communities around all these products, right? So there was something not happening. So even the organizations are through this journey trying to evolve a little more and also, come up with new ways of working. So even for the organization, it was very exciting to follow that taxonomy, to see, how they can build that clarity internally around some of the tickets that they have, and then how do they express a problem statement so that it can be easily comprehensible. I think one of the key feedback points we've always had is that the community tickets are so complex or don't have enough context, or we put a question and we don't get a reply for 1 to 2 weeks. So the idea was to actually completely flip that and make it a very community first way of engagement. So we have a diverse set of organizations that are participating. Now, in this mentoring program, we had over 900 applicants who put up proposals across these 104 projects. There were about 1,500 plus proposals. And all these applicants came from 439 colleges and 25 different companies. So we also had working professionals who applied for this program. At the end, 103, which are all of you, have been selected. So this is the sort of funnel that you all have come through. So again, congratulations to all of you, because it was very difficult to finally, be selected. And then we've been getting feedback from multiple organizations, and they felt that a majority of the proposals that they got were at par. So it was important for them to also, see that, and then for you all to be selected. Congratulations once again. And then I hope that you're all able to contribute well through this journey. Now, what's coming up ahead in this bootcamp? So the entire bootcamp was planned because we want to ensure that you all are ready for this entire 8-week period. Now, what that means is that, you can get into this 8-week period, you can do something and get, you can move out of it. But the idea is that now that you're here, to help you actually understand what is a mindset that you must have when you're doing problem solving, right? What are some coding best practices that you should follow? what are some time management strategies that you should use? Because it's important as you start coding, how do you manage your time? Very, very important. Ask any of our engineers, senior engineers in the community, they'll be very clear about, the importance of this. How do you do your project planning? How do you actually set realistic goals? How do you communicate those goals, right? You don't want to overcommit and underdeliver. You always want to undercommit and overdeliver. Like, how do you actually do all of that, right? And then how do you actually visualize your journey of success through the C4GT? So these are some of the areas that we wanted to focus on over the next few days. And we felt that it's important for you all to have that perspective, because when you get into your 1st July onward, your coding period, you should be ready and, ready to get going. And we all know that, everybody in this community has a certain base standard of understanding and expectations before going forward, because all of you may have varying experience on this open source front. Some of you may have worked a lot in open source. Some of you may have just started. Some of you may have followed repositories, open source repositories. Some may be absolutely new. So that's fine. Doesn't matter where you come from. You made it here, right? So that's great. Now the idea is to have everybody on the same page on some of these points as we move ahead. So what will we be? So this is what we'll be covering in the bootcamp. But where just coming back, where are we at this point? We are going to be closing the entire bootcamp end of this week on Thursday, and then your coding will begin on 1st of July. We will have different bi-weekly check-ins with mentors and contribute with all of you. And the reason for that is we want to ensure that you're all running on track, right? There is no gaps in what you were planning to do and what you're actually doing. There is also clarity on what you're working on, right? And you've been able to sort of work well with your mentors over this fortnight. So if you look at it, there are essentially 4 sprints of 1 fortnight each, right? So 2 weeks, you have 4 sprints essentially. So the idea really is that our team will keep checking in with you bi-weekly, and we'll also keep checking in with the mentors to ensure there is a good movement that's happening on your work streams, and also in your own journey, right? You are able to translate what you're learning into practice. So we're really excited. The journey ahead, like it's written here, is full of growth, excitement, and fulfillment. And I hope that you all are able to maximize your learning through this. At the same time, build a good network, of the people who you're working with in the organizations, and within yourselves as well. All 100 of you are from different places, as you had seen. The idea really is to network, to understand from each other where you all are. Think of yourselves as a community that's going to be together, right? This is a small batch for a 2-month period, but the idea would be that as we move forward, we'll do more meetups. You all should engage with each other. You probably, after you leave college, or some of you are already working, there are about I think a certain amount. Venkatesh can share the exact numbers, but we do have a certain percentage of people also from companies who got through this 103, all of this group. So I hope you get the opportunity to network with each other, speak to each other, and be in touch. And the idea really is that you all can be the flag bearers now of the C4GT community in your area. So I'm going to stop here. Great to have you all once again, and I'm going to pause. If you have any questions, any thoughts, any reactions, would love to sort of hear, what you're thinking, or any questions that you may have about how this program is evolving, or any questions around that. We have a few minutes to do that. Venkatesh, can you just tell us how much time we have before we move ahead?
No, we basically now have time for the Q&A. So basically we have about 10 minutes, 10 15 minutes in which we can have all kind of questions which the contributors have. Yeah. So contributors, the floor is now on you, towards you. Basically, we have given you an overview of what Code for GovTech 2023 is all about. You had a wonderful address by Rahul illustrating his vision for the open source community going forward. Now, if you have any questions and queries, feel free to just raise your hand. We will have the questions taken one by one. It could be a question about the boot camp, about the the path ahead in terms of the coding period, or any other kind of questions that you have related to Code for GovTech. So please feel free to just raise your hand, and we will take questions one by one.
Okay, I see some questions on the group as well. Somebody had asked that, will we have any form of contributor meeting or something similar to talk about their project? So who had asked this question? Sorry, the name says Venkatesh.
So I think some technical glitch because of which some of the names have come as Venkatesh. So please feel free to rename yourself to your original names so that we can get a grasp of who is the question coming from. Yeah.
Got it. Got it. So just to, if I understand this correctly, and whoever asked this, please correct me. What I'm hearing is that, is there a way that you all can, between all of you, have discussions? So if that's the question, yes. In fact, I think starting today, there will be certain that we'll be taking out for, ensuring that you all are interacting with each other. So the team has something planned today in the evening as well. And then as we move forward, based on where you all are located, we may also end up doing some activities, in person. We may catch up, or we at least will definitely be doing online discussions together, similar to what we did last year, but we'll also see if we can do some in person. Thanks. This answers your question. The next question is there any platform other than Discord by which we can talk, chat with maintainers and mentors of the project? So yes, so essentially the Discord channel, the product channel that you have, you can engage with your mentors there, right? But here is a suggestion, in which you will also hear in one of our sessions coming ahead, that engage as much as possible on your GitHub ticket, right? So as much as possible regarding the problem statements on the GitHub ticket. The reason, guys, we want you to focus on the GitHub ticket is because it's a very important skill to articulate your thoughts, right? If you go and look at people who are actually, who are able to, any engineers who are able to actually articulate their thoughts well, right, and put forward their, thinking, are actually able to, create more impact. So our focus is that to push all of you to, as much as possible, articulate on the GitHub ticket that you're working on. In addition to that, if you just want to have some chat, you can always ask queries if you want on the Discord product channel, or whichever mentor you're working with, if he or she may tell you to join some other their own organization's channels. So you can do that, right? But I would say always good to, as far as possible, engage async on GitHub. It'll just get you into a very good way of working, because if you see any of the more global open source products, your ability to, pick up the phone is not there, right? Like you can't call up suddenly somebody sitting in Linux Foundation and say, I have a query. You can't do that. But the more you can articulate and clarify and put out what you're thinking, the more impactful that is. So that would be the suggestion. GitHub first, then the Discord channel, or any other channel that the team members may add you on. You can use those other channels, like some organizations use Slack, so they may add you there. But those you can use more for scheduling, or for doing other things. But try and use GitHub ticket for your more problem statement discussions. Okay.
I think the next question is, will we also have a session planned for one-on-one interaction with the respective mentors?
Right. So this is a good question. So essentially, all the mentors would be reaching out with you. I think the team is already planned for blocking time between all of you and your mentors coming up early next week. But the aim is that every week you actually, with your mentors and you will form a routine of having one-on-one discussions. Now that may differ mentor to mentor, but each mentor will essentially be talking to you at least once a week. That's the current understanding that we all have, and then that's the base expectations. And we'll come a little bit more on what are some of the expectations from the mentors and from you all. I'm going to also give you an overview of what's expectations from them, so that it's transparently available for you as well. But the aim is that you have more interactions with them to begin with, and at least once a week is what you would experience during the next 8 weeks. But they will be very active async. So async, you will have more discussion. So assume that async you're discussing, and then you may end up having more as well. Some organizations are, I think, having 3 times a week a call. So it depends from organization to organization, but I think would recommend that you and your mentors fall into a good routine that works for both of you. Okay. We have another meetup in Delhi. Okay, Mohit, noted. We shall keep that in mind. Will people under same mentors be in a WhatsApp group? So again, we are trying to ensure that I think most of the engineers across different organizations are typically on Discord or Slack. So that's what organizations use. Very few use WhatsApp. So you will either end up using Discord, which is our own, the C4GT Discord, right, for having discussions, or you may use that organization Discord or Slack, on which they'll add you. So that's typically how it will go. In case they are using a WhatsApp group, they may ask you to join a WhatsApp group. but I think that will be minimal. So hope that answers your question, Zed. Then there is Divyansh who's saying, can we conduct meets regularly with our mentors? Okay, this is covered. Can we get an overview of where the projects are being used? Yeah, this is an important question. So can we get an overview of where the projects are being used or who are contributing to it, etc.? So essentially on every product, there is an explanation that is given on what is the use case or how this is being used. But what we've told all the mentors is to also make it very clear to you as to where is that contribution actually going to be used here and now, right? Like after you finish checking it in, where is the potential for it to be used, or where is it already planned to be used? So I would say please actively have that clarity with your mentors, because of course we've spoken to different people and then we know different pieces, but it'll be important for you to have that clarity as soon as you jump in. So maybe the first discussion that you all have with your mentors next week, ensure that is clear. And what will be also good is if you have something more that you want to add, right, about how it's going to be used, please add that also in the GitHub ticket itself, either as a comment or update the existing ticket. But definitely you all will have that clarity on where it will be used, and the aim is that after you check in what you check in August, you'll also be informed of where it goes and gets used. So whether it's a product demo that's going on the ground or whether it's actually being used, you will be involved in that. So that is something that the mentors will actively engage you with. Okay. Is there any placement opportunities? So yes, and how this placement opportunities will play out for you all the organizations that you are working with are essentially organizations who can absorb you all at different points. Now, I can't guarantee whether every organization is looking to give PPOs or pre-placement offers or no, but my suggestion would be that all of you are working with organizations. All these organizations require people to have in their organizations as we move forward, right? So would request that you all engage well with them, and I'm pretty certain opportunities will play out. The other thing is that I would request all of you to be in touch with each other as well, right, in this group, because like I was saying, certain organizations will have more needs, certain will have lesser need, right? But if all of you are in touch, and we'll also try and see if we can have some mechanism where organizations can also share more of these opportunities on our C4GT community. So we are also trying to make that little clear, because I think as you move forward, you are just 100, 103, but opportunities are going to be more than 100, right? So we have to make sure that the other community also can access those opportunities. So we are trying to see how to make organizations also share any opportunity that they have in the community. So you also hear about that. So there are multiple ways you can get placement opportunities, but I would say focus on what you're doing, and hopefully that should translate into an opportunity either with that organization or any other organization that's participating in this program. But overall, I think all the organizations that are here would need in this entire mentoring program would need more engineers as we move forward. So I think opportunity is plenty. It's just a matter of being at the right place at the right time. Okay, what will be a week during coding period look like? I mean, will there be any daily meets or discussions? Yeah, so this will depend. Is Shruti here? Shruti, Venkat, is Shruti here?
I'll just check.
Okay, so you'll hear more about how this goes. So we actually have one of our engineers who's been part of has also been a mentor in GSOC, was also mentor last year in our program, in this mentoring program. So she'll be taking a session and she'll talk about how this happens. Typically, discussions will happen. There will be some daily back and forth, but what's that sort of routine that you want to have? How do you effectively use that? That's something that we'll be covering as a session itself. So I'll leave it, for that session, because she's got more details, because she's actually gone through all of this and understands the best practices around it. So she'll cover that well in that session. Then Mohit asks, I understand the positive impact we could have through these open source projects, but I don't understand why the big organization alliances like DPGA are trying to work for non-profit rather than making these projects closed source and earning through that. What's there for big organization? I'm really grateful inside for the opportunity. Okay, good question, Mohit. So essentially, if you look at the way open source works, right, there are organizations that are building digital public goods, right? And then there are organizations that are adopting these digital public goods. And I'll give you there is a wide frame, right? This is a good question. I don't think a 5-minute discussion would be enough, but maybe Venkatesh, we should organize a separate, session around like who are the organizations across the world and what's happening. But let me give you a brief overview. There are organizations that are building DPGs, right? So for example, you would have heard of Eight Step Foundation. They are building the Sunbird building block that then gets deployed, right? So these are people who are building the building blocks or the reference solutions, right? So these are one set of organizations. Then there are organizations that are deploying this in a certain place. Sunbird, Sunbird Ed, it's called, right? That's the building block that has been deployed as Diksha, which is our national learning platform for the Ministry of IT under NCRT. Now that deployment is done by another organization called the Digital India Corporation. That's the organization that runs DigiLocker, that runs Karmyogi Bharat, that runs now Diksha, right? So DIC runs it. So this is an organization that is actually making this the building block come alive, right? In a context. Then there are other startups, like for example, even here you've got in this cohort of 20 organizations, Trustin is one startup that is leveraging one DPG, but they run a platform. Like their platform is essentially a platform where they're trying to onboard organizations to address sexual harassment related cases in their organizations, and in a way to transparently raise them, address them, close them, right? So they are using this. So while some of their code may be closed source, but the implementation of DPGs, right, that they're open sourcing so that anybody and everybody can contribute to those problem statements. But then you also have organizations who leverage DPGs but don't really open source anything, right? Like everything is closed source. So nobody's stopping these organizations. You see like a lot of organizations across the world leverage open source, but that entire implementation is closed, right? Which is fine. I mean, that's the way the market works. But then there are also organizations that don't keep their code open, they keep it closed, but they contribute back to the open source libraries because it's in their interest, right, to ensure the library evolves. So as well, they'll have teams that will be working towards contributing to the base open source block, but they will not open source the implementation of that in their product. So the Big Four do that. I mean, the FANG group does that pretty effectively as also. So it depends. So Mohit, not sure if that answers your question, but just to give you a perspective, all these range of organizations exist today and operate. Our focus is more on DPG building organizations that are deploying these DPGs for different places, and organizations that are adopting these DPGs, but keeping that part of it open. What you will see going ahead is, as our DPGs go outside to the world, or any DPGs from the world also get implemented in India, you need a big group of people who can actually evolve the DPG. Now, to give you an example of this, today in Diksha, which is a national learning platform, there are lots of requirements. So let's assume there are today 100 requirements, right? The requirements can only be met based on the 50-member team that exists today on Sunbird, right? Like the community. But if the community is bigger, right, and if other people are also using it, you'd see the development implementation much more faster, right? So as a result, the only way you can actually catalyze good adoption across the world of DPG is if you have an active community. Some of you may end up working for organizations that are deploying some of these DPGs globally. So for example, Sunbird Ed is now being used in different countries want to take it. Our entire Aadhaar, which is essentially called MOSIP, is also being used in different countries. Our DigiLocker has gone somewhere else. There are also some building blocks that are not being used by the government, but are directly being used outside. Like for example, you'll hear from somebody who we are getting in externally joining us. He's one of our mentors, super mentors. He's going to come and talk to you in the today, later in the day. But they've built a protocol. If you've heard of Namayatri, I don't know how many of you have heard of Namayatri, right? So Namayatri is based on that protocol, right? ONDC, the Open Network Digital Commerce, is built on that. In fact, there is so much traction of that, not only in India, but Paris wants to use it for the city of Paris wants to use it for different use cases. We'll talk more about that later when he comes. So there are use cases of this, but our focus right now is on DPG organizations and the ones that are deploying these DPGs. So those are the kind of organizations you'll see, and also some that are startups who want to use it, but are open sourcing just that part of the implementation. Okay, give a brief about the opportunities of PPI. Okay, hope that Alpit, the question that I answered earlier answers yours. If you have ideas about creating new DPGs, whom should we discuss it with? Okay, so this is a good question. If you have ideas about creating new DPGs, so I would say start small, like in the sense, I mean, think big in terms of like even the features you're implementing right now, right, in your DPGs. Think more about that DPG, right? Try and work with a mentor to see what are other problem statements. Can you see what's the maximum potential of the product you're working in, right? Can you see where the use cases are, or like what can become better in it, right? And then think about how do you improve, or like what's your request for change, right? Given the architecture that is there, right? The more you think like that, right, the better you'll be able to visualize. Like if the larger question is, it's not about idea of a DPG, it's about actually how do you design a DPG, right? Like how do you architect a DPG? That is a big problem statement. Like you can't, it's a thing to have something that you deploy for like 10 users versus 10 million, right? Like the entire game changes. We've done reviews where we had something and we had to deploy it at a national level. A lot of things had to change, and we thought it's going to be an easy ride. It was very hard. So you'll hear some of those experiences also the next 2-3 days of people who deployed things at scale. But the idea is, how do you think of essentially building or designing a DPG? And that, I would say, the more you talk to your mentors, the more you work on your product, think like that. Think about, like, review the architecture, think about how can you add something more that you think can be valuable, and then build on it. Remember, this is just the start of the journey. Ideally, you finish these 8 weeks and can actually do more across either your product or other products. So the thing, the world is your oyster, is what I would say. So you'd be able to design more, contribute more. And if you have thoughts on powerful DPGs, please implement it, and you have all of you to sort of, support you in getting there as well. Around what time will the PPIs be conducted? So essentially, PPIs will happen, as and when you finish your entire period, you will have certain PPI that will come up then or a little later, but there is no fixed time. But what we've told the organizations also that are part of this is that they can start doing that immediately after you finish your period of the mentoring 8 weeks. Okay, Venkatesh is again asking, what are the performance metrics? I'm assuming this is some other name. Okay, so performance metrics. So essentially, the goal of this program for all of you is that you want to finish what you're working on, right? And you are able to check in the code, and that code is then finally accepted by the mentor. So that is what you want to do, and it's done with a certain quality as well. So that is also something that you will talk about a little bit in the session that we have. But aim is that you are able to close it well and check it in before 31st August. So that's the overall sort of metric in terms of what you want to do. We haven't kept a metric on how you engage on GitHub, or for example, how actively you are sort of engaging with the mentor. But that said, I would say, like, the reason we don't want to do that is we don't want to micromanage things, right? But we'll set the expectations very clearly with you all so that you can build on it. And we are hoping that all of you want to learn, so you'd actually end up doing more than what you even put together. So that's how we are looking at it from a performance perspective. In ABDM, we have 5 projects. How would we communicate to work synchronously with other contributors? Yeah, so in certain places where you have multiple projects under one product, you may end up as a group also talking on a Discord community channel, like the one that you have for your product, or you may be onboarded onto the organization's other channels. So on ABDM, I'm assuming it is going to be the Discord community that we have, like the channel that you have on the C4GT Discord community. You're going to be discussing things there as and when needed. If there is more sync required between the 4 of you, I think that's something that you work with the mentor on. In fact, yeah, ABDM is mentored. I think 4 of the projects are very similar. 1 is different. And those 4 are being mentored by somebody called Atul, who's an active Googler today. Like, he's still working on Google, but is contributing to that NHA project. So he'll organize something for you guys. When you say organization, are you referring to organization of a mentor, the organization of the product we are working on? So typically, most of the mentors come from the organizations that the product is from, right? In certain cases, they may not be the case. Like, for example, in this case, ABDM, and both the mentors actually are not from ABDM, but are working as community members for ABDM, right? So the opportunity would typically be around the organization of the product, right? You may have a few mentors that are part of this entire mentoring cohort that are working for that organization for a certain period. So to your point, think about organization for the product. That said, if there is some other opportunity at the mentor organization, yes, but I would think that's one-off, but typically it's of the organization of the product. Okay, Vanshika asks, will we be given any document declaring employment contributor work, like an offer letter by the organization? There are guidelines in my college to submit this for 2 months. Okay, yeah, so all of you, after successfully completing this 2-month period, will get a digitally verifiable QR coded certificate that says what you worked on. So you can use that for anything that you want to show at the college. You'll also, if need be, and then that we can also give is a letter which is signed by the organization and by the C4GT organizing team to say this is what you worked on and a little bit more about that. So certificate is what we had planned for, but we can always do a document as well if that is needed. So maybe we can do a poll or something towards the end where if all of you need, and Venkatesh, you can just plan for that. If you feel document is also needed, you can just do a poll, and if there's enough folks, we'll get that organized. Okay, so Nupur's question also hopefully gets addressed by this. Can you throw some light on the stipend? Okay, so stipend, you all would know that there is a certain stipend that is being given to all of you at the successful completion of your project. You will receive a certain percentage of it at the end of 1 month and the rest at the end of 2 months. So that is how it is. I think it's about, if I'm not wrong, you'd get 40% at the end of 1 month and 60%, the remaining 60% at the end of your coding period, August coding period. Okay, I also have a message which says time check. We need to close. Okay, guys, I'll just be quick. Okay. Can we also contribute to other projects while working on the project you're selected for? Okay, so Abhishek is asked that can we contribute to other projects while working on the project you're selected for? So I would say do that if you feel like doing that. But 2 things to note. Number 1, you should close your project well, right? So don't drop the ball on your project. You don't want to do that. Second, you can work on any other project, but try and work on the community. So you would have seen, right, there are community projects that are out there. So you can work on community projects, you get points, you get all of that. So work on community projects if you need to for other projects, right? But my push to you would be, you are spending 8 weeks, right? You've got somebody who's dedicating time to you. Focus as deeply as you can on your product, right? It's easier to say that you can do breath all the time after these 8 weeks, but as far as possible, go deep into what you're working on, right? At least for these 8 weeks, and after that, of course, focus anywhere else, wherever you want to. So my nudge to your question, Abhishek, you can work on any other projects as part of the community effort, but nudge would be to go deep in what you're working on for these 8 weeks. Okay. Is the contributor's contribution also monitored by Smagra, and do we have any chance of getting it? So contributors' contribution, so it's not monitored by Smagra, but essentially Smagra is essentially the organizing team. So ultimately, we are responsible for ensuring that stipends are paid, certificates are given, and those will be given on the basis of where you reach. So from that perspective, we are aware about your journey. At the same time, we want to ensure, more than monitor, we want to ensure that all of you land well at the end of 2 months. What that means is you can be torch bearers for your products in the community. You can be people who are actually not just aware of how to work in open source, but have experienced what it means to work in a benchmark way, right? Like these sessions we are doing is to help you think well on how to work in the open source, plan your sessions well, work well. So we want you to also be examples of great open source community leaders. So that's where you want to be, right? Monitoring is a very myopic way of looking at it, but we want to ensure and we want to enable as much of this during this next 2 months, and which is why this bootcamp and the regular check-ins with you all as you move forward through your journey.